Joel tells us that on page 96 of this book, Thunder of Silence, he has given us the secret of the infinite way. He says it in a few words, and because it falls in this chapter, we will take notice of it. At the very bottom, this is the secret of the infinite way, and it is the secret of healing. Henceforth, know we no man after the flesh. That's quite a secret. To be the secret of the infinite way, when the infinite way is the secret of the Christ teaching. And so we may say the statement he made must also be the secret of the teaching of Jesus Christ. Henceforth, know we no man after the flesh. And here we have gone 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, knowing every person after the flesh, for many lifetimes, fully conditioned to the belief that the flesh we see is the person. And here is the secret of the infinite way, that we can never judge that appearance to be what it appears to be. Now, after we have read the chapter and even understood it, the first person that comes into our presence is treated exactly as we treated that person before. I've been through that, and you have been through that, and we both know that no matter how we determine to know no man after the flesh, there is some instinct in us that automatically sees, accepts, and treats that individual as the same human form we have always known. Especially if there is a love attachment, especially if there is a hate attachment, especially if there is a fear attachment, especially if it is someone very close to us, especially if it happens to be our mother, especially if it happens to be the child that I bore. All of this is contrary to the teaching. What kind of a teaching can it possibly be that wishes us to leave mother and father and sister and brother for my sake? How in the world can we accomplish that ability to look out through human eyes and to know what God sees instead of what our naked eyes see? Now, we've all been trying to do that. We find a phrase that enters into mind: you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And even though we have tried to know the truth, and we know many beautiful words, somehow there is an elusive truth not contained in those words. For you can remember within the last 48 hours that there was someone you in some way did not see as the Christ, someone you saw as just the paper boy or the grocer or another pedestrian or another driver on the street. And when it gets to politics, we all see after the flesh. When it gets to nations, we see after the flesh. Now, we have learned that as we judge, we are judged. We have learned that as we see a rose and pronounce it good, but look at another flower and pronounce it not as good, that we have denied the omnipresence of God. God where that rose is no more or less than God where the other flower is. And right there, we have a bottleneck in our conditioned minds. We are told to lean not on our own understanding, but to trust the Lord in all our ways. And this begins to demand of us a surrender of all of the natural inclinations that we feel. we just long to go out and praise this and condemn that. Criticism happens to be an innate quality of the human mind. It's hard to set it aside, but finally, it dawns upon us that the criticism we are sending out is going to return in abundance to us. And then we begin to see that we are not to hold back criticism simply because it is the moral thing to do, but because it stands between us and the acceptance that God is all. It presents our demonstration of truth. It is a glass darkly. It plays a trick upon us. And now we are beginning to look at people with that single eye. Yes, they appear to be flesh, but we are to learn how to unmask the form, how to understand the form, how to look through the appearance, and to feel there the Son of God, the invisible offspring, the Christ, in spite of the fear, the hate, or the love that we may have felt before we dedicated our lives to becoming a clear channel for God. So our pilgrimage into self-denial, into surrender, into acceptance that if I believe in God, it must be more than lip service. I was called to a little meeting the other day with one rather famous astrologer and two not so famous, and they said, we'd like you to attend this meeting because we would like, we'd like a little God present in this broadcast. And then they invited someone else who was to take the negative side against astrology. And in the conversation it came out that the astrologer reads the externals and then forms conclusions. And one of the astrologers happened to be a person who had studied something of the Far East. He was talking about the inner man, which he called the Atman. And I said to him, if you believe in the inner man, why do you have to read the outer stars to find out more about what man should do? And so the conversation abruptly took another turn. They weren't interested in discussing that phase of it. And finally, when I flatly said that astrology was a repudiation of the Christ message, all three astrologers jumped on me. Oh no, we believe in God. Oh, we believe in God. Oh, I believe in God. Oh yes, we have spiritual feelings. Now you see, to believe in God is what the world thinks it is doing. It thinks it believes in God, but it believes in God without believing in the things that God is saying, and without accepting the divine laws that are laid down by the Spirit through the inspired prophets. You cannot believe in God unless you accept that which God is saying. And God says, look unto me, all ye ends of the earth, for there is no other. I am the Lord thy God. Seek ye first the kingdom, not the stars. And I was very unpopular that day, because the astrologers like to talk out of both sides of their mouth. To pretend a belief in God, or to even think we have a belief in God, we must be moving in the will of the Father. And the will of the Father looks out and it says, I see no iniquity. I see no sin. I see no sickness. I see no birth. I see no death. I see God the Father and God the Son, and there is no other. And we who believe in God must believe in that which God tells us is the truth, that God is all. And therefore, we cannot believe in the existence of evil. We cannot believe that tomorrow there will be a doom over the world because of something the stars told us. We cannot believe that on a certain day of the month one shouldn't cross the border, or one shouldn't make a trip, or one shouldn't head for another country. We cannot believe that on a certain day the weather will become so unsatisfactory that we must stay home because it could very well be a catastrophe. Once we accept God, we accept all that goes with God, and that means we have eradicated from our consciousness every belief in the presence or possibility of sin, immorality, vice, crime, evil, sickness, death. These are not possible in God. There's no polluted stream in the kingdom of God. There's no war in the kingdom of God. There's no good person or bad person in the kingdom of God. So all these judgments persisting are our unbelief in God. And when we prognosticate through the stars that tomorrow this or that will happen, or this or that catastrophe will engulf the world, we're not believing in God. We're practicing atheism and saying we believe in God. And although I wouldn't call astrologers atheists on a public broadcast, I very gladly say it right now that anyone who believes in God must accept the fact that perfection is the only reality. There can be no imperfection. And so we unmask the forms. We see that the things that we fear are not things at all. We find that the things that we fear are our own beliefs. That is all we have ever faced as a problem. You have never faced a person or a condition. You have faced your own beliefs. Your beliefs, made visible and tangible, constitute what you have called condition, what you have called person, what you have called thing. You will discover perhaps today that the world we walk in is not made of things, is not made of persons, is not made of conditions, but is made of thought. All of it, completely. Cosmic thought, individually received, individually accepted, individually reacted to. And it is your reaction to the cosmic thought that creates the person, the form, and the condition. Now, the essence of this chapter and the reason it is the secret of the infinite way is that it unveils the lie that prevents us from walking now in the kingdom of God. There is a possibility that as you become aware that cosmic thought moving through what we call this world touches you, evokes a reaction, and that reaction becomes your outer experience. As that reaction is stilled, cosmic thought passes you by. In that absence of reaction, in that taking of no cosmic thought, you find a new lease on life. You find you're able to unmask the forms of this world. Now take a moment to see that everything that occurs in this world is not of God. The earthquake, the disaster, the flood and the fire, the hate, the racism, all of the concepts that we entertain and which change from day to day and year to year, these are not of God. The weather is not of God. The forests, the oceans are not of God. Nothing of a material nature is of God. But how does it get here? How do we unmask the illusions so that we can walk in the freedom of the Spirit? Now, if you will just up-tilt your face a little and let the infinite be your target, you will find that all around you are cosmic thought waves. This will be the glass darkly. This will be the great deceiver which has masked us from reality since the birth of the human race. Cosmic thought waves moving through you. You will find that as you become aware of this, you can, with closed eyes, feel the actual flow of cosmic thought waves and let them come up against your face just as a seashore would let the water come upon the shore. Unblinking, unmoving, feeling cosmic thought waves move toward you and you permitting them to flow by. Slowly a great joy develops in the knowledge that you can do this and let all that is not of the Father move into your consciousness with no reaction on your part. You can literally know that this world, all of it, is one cosmic image with an infinite variety of thought forms in it, all moving past you for acceptance. And as you feel the pulse of this, you may realize that you too, as a form, are nothing more than a cosmic thought wave. And up to now, your life has consisted of this form, this cosmic thought wave that you appear to be, reacting against the cosmic thought waves all around you. You may even feel for a moment that there is no real you walking on the earth, but rather you are melting the finite concepts, the limitations, the boundaries that have placed you upon the earth as human flesh, in a form, in a weight, in a mold, which henceforth you must recognize is not you. You will find that this may be the first moment in which you have ever experienced that we are not really walking upon the earth. We are consciousness. And the illusion of person walking upon the earth is dispelled as suddenly something in you bubbles up and releases you from the conditioned concept of centuries. You begin to know why omnipresence is the name of God the Father and God the Son. You begin to know why there can be no evil in reality. You begin to know that no person has ever been sick. You begin to understand the non-reality of both birth and death. You begin to feel the infinite possibility of your own being. And as you maintain this practice, of contemplating, of permitting yourself to feel the cosmic flow of thought waves with no reaction, you will develop a power of non-resistance to non-existence. And you will find that as this power develops, you can walk through that which comes invisibly as cosmic thought and recognize it instinctively, creating within you a vacuum through which the infinite enters instead. Now take your hand. You can move it left or right. Your heart, you can't do that. Rather, the beat of the heart is controlled by something else. The flow of the blood is controlled by something else. The multiplication of cells and the transmutation of them is controlled by something else. Now, this something else is not God. That which controls your heart, your pulse, your bloodstream, the breath you inhale and exhale, this is cosmic thought. It has nothing to do with God. And that is why when Joel meditated upon the illness of his father, he was told from within, man does not live by breath alone. He had discovered in that moment of inspiration that our lives do not depend on our breathing at all. Only the fleshly image depends on the breathing, and the fleshly image is not our life. It is cosmic thought made visible. You can take that and go very far with it, and you will discover that cosmic thought made visible as your heartbeat, first as your heart and then as your heartbeat, first as your lungs and then as the inhalation and exhalation, comes into your conscious awareness, and now it makes you move your hand to the left or the right, or your foot, or your body, and you think you're doing this volitionally. It's as non-volitional as the beat of your heart. It simply has come within the range of your conscious awareness, and it has fooled us all into thinking that we are moving the hand. We are moving the foot. But you see, the image in the flesh has absolutely no power, although it seems to think it can decide to do this or that. Well, you say, I can run up the street and I can run down the street. But you cannot. That is the hypnotism. The image that goes up and down the street is not going up and down because you decided to. The cosmic mind decides, and you merely do it, under the illusion that you are doing it. And it's quite a shock later when you discover that even the birth of a baby is a cosmic mind projection. We are here to unmask the truth. And we find that stillborn babies and mongoloid babies and mothers who die in childbirth are not of God, but rather of the cosmic mind. Cosmic thought appearing as. And what about the good babies? Henceforth know ye no baby after the flesh. Yes, it's a very shocking subject, but it is the secret of the infinite way. And it was the secret of Jesus, who declared that he was not born of woman. Now, as we develop the capacity to walk through this visible world, knowing it is not a physical world at all. It is not a biologic thing. It is not a material substance. It consists of your beliefs and my beliefs and the cosmic mind beliefs that we accept turned into the visible, tangible things of this world. These are not things, they are beliefs. And it has been given to us that you do never remove a condition. You're only wasting your time. never do you remove a condition. Instead, you learn the mystical secret that you remove a belief. As you remove a belief, you discover that the condition dissolves. And the reason it does is because the belief within is the condition without. As you remove the belief in an evil person, you discover that that evil of that individual cannot be directed at you. As you remove the belief that would condemn or unforgive or in some way be critical, you discover this removal of belief prevents condemnation, criticism, and unforgiveness from being directed at you. The belief entertained within becomes the absence of the condition without. Truth within becomes truth without. Harmony within becomes harmony without. Spiritual power within becomes the visible manifestation of the qualities of God surrounding you like a halo. Now then, if you were to apply this principle to all your conditions, problems, disturbances, you would discover that when you are able to dismiss the condition, you have completely taken dominion over the material world. You have set it aside. All of the material universe is of no concern to you. Now you're on the higher rung. You're in the mental universe, the universe of beliefs. And knowing that mind within becomes condition or substance without, that every form is mind externalized, we now have completely obliterated the need to remove an external condition. We see through the hypnosis of it. The condition which we would remove is not there. We are looking at our belief made visible. Now we take this belief. What put it there? Maybe heredity, maybe education, maybe habit, maybe our environment, maybe the conditioning of past lives, maybe the beliefs of our present parents or our past parents. Always, we know that the belief which accepts the presence of any form of iniquity on this earth is accepting that which God did not create. Did God pronounce you to suffer? Does God give us a malignancy? Does God send boys of one nation out to kill boys of another nation? And if God, the only power, the only creator, the only source, has not put these things on earth, our belief in their existence is our denial of the allness of God, the power of God, the presence of God. And in that denial, our misbelief becomes that which makes us suffer, that which makes us unable to walk in oneness. Now you reverse this. Henceforth, know we no man after the flesh. Because as we discovered last week, all you can truthfully say about a rose is it is a rose. You cannot endow it with qualities from your mind. We learn to move through the rose and let the Spirit establish in our consciousness that everything in Spirit is infinite, perfect, unchanging, incorporeal, eternal. And we find out the qualities of a rose through the Spirit within us. Now we apply this to the flesh of people, animal, vegetable, and mineral. We let the Spirit define what is and what is not. We of our own selves do not lean on our understanding, on our judgment. I cannot judge that which is before me with a human mind. Or else all of my heredity, education, or lack of it, environmental experience, past conditioning, will enter into that judgment. And so in the vacuum of non-judgment, we are letting the Spirit define that out here is no thief. Out here is no cheat. Out here is no corrupt politician. Out here is no ignoramus. We are setting aside our judgments of this world. Just as we did for the rose, now we look and we say, flesh is flesh is flesh. All I can do is name it. I can have no opinion about it, because any opinion that I entertain is a judgment. And every judgment is a sword pointed directly at me. Where this individual stands who I would judge as good or bad, fat or thin, healthy or unwell, all that stands there is the invisible Son of God. The recognition of Christ where the world sees flesh is the discipline that we learn to practice without ceasing. 99% of the time we're unable to do it. And then someday we're able to do it 98% of the time. But to walk with God, to say I believe, means that you must believe the omnipresence of God, which automatically makes you reject that which is not the presence of God, that which is not the presence of Christ. And finally, this is your commitment to walk with God wherever you are. Wherever your eyes look, they must be the single eye, the eye that never accepts that God has an opposite, or God has a lesser self somewhere. Your love for your neighbor becomes the acceptance of Christ everywhere, even where your common sense tells you that you're simply making a great mistake by judging this particular individual as a communist, or this particular individual as a revolutionary, or this particular individual as a greedy person. Now, we had an experience recently along these lines which is important today. It concerns a woman who called for help about her son. And we noticed that she was rather reluctant to disclose the details. All she would say is he was arrested. Well, what did he do? Well, he did something he shouldn't have done. And you had all kinds of possible ideas. And then she blurted out that he was one of the 7 in Chicago. And we realized that what she was really saying was that the government had indicted him for being a revolutionary. She wanted help for him. The question is, if henceforth we know no man after the flesh, and if God knows no man after the flesh, is this boy a revolutionary? What is that phrase? So we found that in the meditations there had to be exactly what we're talking about today: no judgment. You could be the most avid nationalist you wish to be, but if you're going to live in spirit, there can be no judgment, no prejudgment, no after judgment, no judgment at any time. And so all we had here was the invisible Spirit of God on trial in Chicago. There was nothing else there. And who was he on trial before? Who else was there in Chicago but the invisible Spirit of God? Now that was 21 weeks ago. And the boy sort of laughed at his mother. He wasn't too interested in this. I was tempted to, rather, I was led to write her in this vein. Your boy may be indicted as a revolutionary, but I can assure you he is not that in God's eyes. And we may discover that even all of the beliefs of men that he is one, when faced with the knowledge that God does not see him as one, may uncover some unusual events. And that was after 3, 4, 5 meditations on the subject. And so, finally, last Sunday, just before this class, at 11 o'clock, I received a call from that woman, and she said, the judge has issued citations for 3 or 4 of the boys. And I just spoke to my son, and he really broke down, cried. In fact, he went sort of hysterical, because all he could see was the injustice of something. And then she told me something that I hadn't known up to then. She said when he was 15, he went to a party, and he took a friend with him who was colored, a colored boy, and this boy he had taken to the party was to play the flute there. When he came to the party, they said, if you bring this colored boy in, we don't want you at all. You'll have to stay out, too. That stuck with this boy. And he said to his mother, you know, I may be considered a revolutionary, but I'm really working for a world where you can take a colored boy to play a flute, and nobody's going to argue about it, among other things. And so it developed that this woman then asked me to work, or asked if I was still working on the case. And I can assure you that what help I gave in the last moments was very minimal. And yet, the next day, as I read the paper, there was a citation against this boy. He was to get 6 months. Others were getting 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, some were getting years. And I thought to myself, well, that's contrary to what Spirit told me 21 weeks ago. And then on Wednesday, about 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon, the mother called. She said, did you hear the news? She said, John has been acquitted. Now, of all the boys there, they were all given 5 years, except 2. One I had nothing to do with, and the other we had to witness the non-reality of the flesh. And as strange as it may seem, and as contrary and preconditioned as the judge was, it would never appear possible that any of those boys could come out of that without a sentence. And yet the only one who had spiritual work done did come out of it without a sentence. And so there is a power. It wasn't a coincidental power. There is an invisible power of truth, and it says always, where there is a thief, where there is a murderer, where there is a revolutionary, this is the illusion. Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased, is the truth behind every form that we see. And there are no exceptions. It doesn't even matter if the person believes in God. And this boy was an atheist. The last thing in the world he believed in was the power of God. It was his mother's consciousness that really released him. And the chances are that if the other boys had such mothers, they too would not have had their 5-year sentences. Now, the reason we mention this case today is because it just happened at this time, and it also happened at a time when I was teaching the unconditioned mind to one of the students privately. And so it came as a perfectly timed lesson for the understanding of the unconditioned mind. Now, as we go along and see people that we call the kind of names that we all put and label people with, we are turning the Spirit of God away from our experience. Because that Spirit can never function through and in the critical, conditioned, opinionated human mind. In fact, no healing can ever come through a human mind. All healing has to be on the spiritual level, and then it will manifest on the human level. Now you take the psychiatrist. While he's probing the mind of his patient, the last laugh is really on the cosmic brain, because this cosmic mind is not only the mind of the patient, it's also the mind of the psychiatrist. When the doctor is operating on his patient, the cosmic mind is not only the form of the patient, it's also the form of the doctor. The cosmic mind image is what you're looking at in every person you see. But behind it is the divine image. And for you to know, to accept only the divine image that stands behind the mental image of the human, or the animal, or the mineral, or the vegetable, this is sowing to the spirit. We know that we are not the divine image and likeness as we stand. But we do know that there is the divine image and likeness. And it is omnipresent. And it is our reality. And it is the reality of all. And so there is no evil in that individual who is a revolutionary. There is no evil in that murderer. You are seeing the acceptance of cosmic thought in a cosmic image, appearing locally. We learn to impersonalize the belief in evil in any individual, because if we do not, we are as hypnotized as they. And we are then subject to the same cosmic suggestions that they are subject to. And so you see, your purification is the acceptance that God is all. God is the only being. God is the only life. God is the only law. And every appearance to the contrary is nothing more than a temptation to make you localize, personalize, and comment about things that are not true in the infinite spiritual universe. As you judge, you are then judged. It is your judgment that returns to judge you. It is your belief that returns as the conditions of your life. And the moment you accept the belief that it is possible for God to be all and there also to be a murderer, you have opened yourself to the possibility of being murdered. When you accept that there is a thief as well as God, you have opened yourself to the possibility of being burglarized. When you open yourself to the belief that there is God and a good one or a bad one, you have lost the truth that God is all and the only. You have lost the one being, the one life, the one self. And it's fidelity to the one self which ultimately removes from you the possibility of judging. I cannot judge God. I cannot judge God, and there is no other. Then you have reached that level in which you not only know no man henceforth after the flesh, but you no longer know yourself to be that good and that evil flesh. You recognize yourself to be the invisible spiritual flesh of the Father. God is my substance. God is my being. God is my spiritual selfhood. God the Father is God the Son. So now we're in identity. We identify not as the individual capable of looking out upon the world with criticism. We identify as God the Son, the living offspring of the living God. And there's no place where the eye can rest that the presence of God can be denied. No matter how scarlet the individual who faces you, in your consciousness you must learn to make him white as snow. This is the discipline of the inner Christ. Now, because your beliefs become the outer conditions, your belief in the omnipresence of virtue, the omnipresence of truth, the omnipresence of harmony, the omnipresence of perfection in all things, is the purity of your own consciousness, which will now be manifest as the treasures of the kingdom released. This is how you come into not the finite, limited world in time, but the fullness of the Godhead. All that appears before you is the imitation of the invisible Spirit. It comes to you equally invisible as thought waves of a cosmic mind. And unless those thought waves of the cosmic mind have a receiver in you, they cannot form before you as the evils of this world. They cannot come to you as the problems of this world, or the diseases of this world, or the sufferings and pains of this world. And because they are not of God, when you know this, you can face all of these invisible cosmic ideas, knowing that when you see forms, you are not seeing forms. You are seeing invisible cosmic ideas made manifest. And therefore they have no divine power, no divine ordination. What are they? They are not the divine image. Where are they? They are not out there. They are in the cosmic mind. They are televised to the individual mind. And if that individual mind, which is you, refuses to accept the reality of them, then you are sowing to the Spirit, and you will dissolve that which is unreal. You will not remove the condition per se, but rather you will overcome the belief in the condition, and the condition will not disturb you. Now underline that. The condition is not to be removed. It is the false lure. It is the image that is not there. It is only there as an image because you are here as an image. And in the vacuum, as you let divine mind function through you, it will destroy for you the false images of the cosmic mind. So we're talking about freedom in a different sense than the world knows it. We're talking about true freedom. Freedom from cosmic images, freedom from individual images, freedom from everything that is not of God. Freedom in Christ, in truth. Now, we were born of the water. Some were even baptized in the water. But now, in the rebirth of the Spirit, we are baptized by the Spirit. And this is the difference between the dead and the quick. The dead, the images of the cosmic mind who walk the earth as flesh. We are moving out of this, becoming separate, becoming the quick, baptized by the inner Spirit, accepting the allness of God must include my being. And in this acceptance, as we begin to feel the truth, we are letting God know the truth through us. Then we will know the truth, because God must be the knower in us. We cannot mentally know the truth that will make us free, any more than we can do something about conditions. But we can let the Father within know the truth in us. And that truth is that I, in the midst of you, am the living Spirit of God. I am too pure to behold iniquity. I am the light, and in me is no darkness at all. I am your eternal self, and I am no less your eternal self now than I will be 500 years from now. Accept me now. Here, in you now, is the Christ. Unlock the Christ by releasing yourself from mortal belief. And now as you dwell in the truth of your being, you find the great power which permits you to look at all the forms in the world and say, these are cosmic thought forms. Cosmic images appearing out there because cosmic thought has come through and has touched another cosmic image which receives that cosmic thought. And this is how the pyramid of cosmic images continues. Erase the belief in these cosmic thought forms, and you find the glass darkly has no power over you. All flesh that you see is not God's creation. All the material world that you see, all of the things that you see, all of the forms that you see, whether they are the beautiful stars or an ugly, muddy little stream, are not God's creation, but are the cosmic images of the cosmic mind. An imitation of that which stands before you pure, eternal, infinite, and perfect, but invisible to the naked eye. Now, our faith in this unseen universe of perfection is another way of believing in the allness of God. We're no longer interested in the words, in the conversations, in the concepts. We're interested in the experience of God where we stand. In the presence of God living itself as us. And the only way God can live itself as us is when we have purified ourselves of the belief that out here the changing images are real, that the good and the bad were placed there by some divine providence. And finally, you know there is nothing in this world for you ever to fear, except the unrealities that you accept in the false belief that God is not present. As the experience of God's presence rises in you, so does the fear of the things of this world diminish in you. Always the presence realized is the release from the fear, the hate, the doubt, the uncertainty, the pain, the suffering. For in the presence of the Spirit of the Father there is liberty in all things. We have that power to bring that liberty by virtue of our fidelity to our own substance and to that substance in everyone we see. That doesn't mean that we have to run up and kiss everybody, throw an arm around them and say, I love you. It means that we respect the spiritual identity of those we see. We speak to their spiritual identity. We do not react to their physical identity. We do not accept them as biologic creatures. A rose is a rose is a rose. The flesh is the flesh is the flesh. As we applied it in nature, we apply it to man. Name it and forget it. All that is there is an image. But behind that image is divine consciousness appearing to you as an image called form. Consciousness is all that can ever be there, because God's Spirit is consciousness, and consciousness is ever present, infinite, the only reality that is there. That consciousness standing before you is pure, regardless of the image that appears. And having conquered the belief in the image, you are now walking in the kingdom of God on earth. You are letting the cosmic images that are localized as form not enter to defile your pure consciousness. And that is the way you bless. That is the way you love. That is the way you forgive. That is the way you lift the eye of others who come to you. Now you see how total this new consciousness must be. And it is not going to be done out of a chapter or out of a lecture. It's going to be done because something in you says, this is the way I intend to live. Because something in you says, this is my divine sequence now. I'm moving in the rhythm of the Father. And only His will in my consciousness will be my consciousness. Now, I think there's a tendency in us to really wait for God to come along to fix something up. We all have the belief that if I can just get still enough, God coming through will remove the condition. Now that's a little better than praying to God up in the sky. But you see, you're still accepting the condition. Now you say, well, what can I do? That's what I see, that's what I know, that's what I feel. I've got to accept it. No, you don't. If you do, you're still working on a mental level. You're not in spiritual living or in spiritual healing. And you're not in God. In other words, there must come the place where I and the Father are one is your consciousness, and where you let go of what the human mind knows to be true. It knows that my daughter has this problem. But God doesn't know your daughter has this problem, or else God would have removed it. And what God doesn't know, you cannot possibly know. Therefore, God not knowing your daughter has this problem really means that she doesn't have it. Everything you call a problem is your belief in a life apart from God. Now then, that's where the bottleneck would be. How can I drop my belief that I have the problem if that's what I feel, if that's what I see? But isn't that the subject of the chapter? Do not know yourself after the flesh? Why do you want to limit yourself to what your mind knows and sees and feels, when we have learned that the human mind is not God's creation? There is no human mind. There is the one infinite mind, which is the only mind, and it only knows its infinite self. Therefore, why limit yourself to your individual limited concepts? And so, we finally are touched by the ability to say, Father, I see this girl's problem, but I do not accept it as being real. Because I know if it were real, you would have removed it long ago. That it cannot be real, it is not of you. I am not accepting the condition. I know the condition is only belief appearing outwardly. Now what am I going to do about that belief? That's the next question. So I cannot be a chain in the complete world reaction of belief. I must come forth and be separate. Let's see how Paul puts that, so we see how we're to step out of the belief. Now that's in 2 Corinthians, I think. The 6th chapter. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Touch not the unclean thing means do not accept it in your consciousness. Now you've got to do that. There'll come a time when you yourself must do that, and there's no one else to rely upon. Accept not means touch not the unclean thing. There is nothing unclean in God, and God is all. Now if you persist in believing there's a condition to be removed, this chapter is going over your head. If you see that this is to change your consciousness, where you come forth and become separate from those who believe there is such a condition, then you are the student of the Christ. And now, my eyes tell me there is such a condition, but God tells me there is no such condition. Shall I serve my eyes for the statement of God that all is perfect in my universe? Shall I serve God on mammon? Shall I linger in the belief that there is a life called my daughter that is separate from God's life? If I'm learning to accept that I and the Father are one, why can't I accept that the Father and my daughter are one? Why can't I see that the I of me is the I of my daughter and it is one with the Father? I must be lifted up then to the realization that the separation between people is only a separation between the images of the mind. Yes, we are separated as images, but we are not those images. We are the one Spirit. I and my Father are the one Spirit. This must be your slogan, your creed, your belief, your song, your conviction. And if I and my Father are never separated but one, then I am one with all who are one with the Father everywhere, and there is only one infinite self to which I can be faithful. That is my belief. And therefore I am under the law of that infinite self. And everyone I know is under the law of that infinite self. I will not sow to the visible image called person. It may be sick because it accepts itself as image. I accept it as the divine image, never born, never dying, never sick. And I can make no exception. Do you see how we must hold a line of truth within ourselves, or else we too are separated from the very Spirit we are trying to walk with. Come forth and be separate from the world that believes that that image over there is separate from God. And no, it is not a physical image. It is the invisible divine image. And then rest in the Word. Look all the way over to the 46th Psalm and you'll see why you must rest in the Word. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. Might as well have said, my daughter has a skin rash, or my uncle has cancer. The heathens raged. The kingdoms were moved. But what happened? He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The earth is the false cosmic images around you. The earth melted. In other words, the illusions of suffering, pain, agony, malignancy died the moment that the voice uttered itself. Now, where does that voice utter itself except in you? And we know it cannot utter itself in us unless we have purified ourselves of the belief that there is anything on this earth that is not the Spirit of God. We know there is no evil. We know that no condition can be evil. We know that all is Spirit. And in that purity, the voice utters itself in you and melts the conditions that appear. Now that's the part you play in bearing witness to the omnipresent Spirit of God. You cease having daughters. You cease having husbands and wives. You cease having friends. You witness the Christ everywhere, and the Christ is not your daughter. The Christ is not your mother. The Christ is not your husband or wife. You are sowing not after the flesh. Of course it's different from the way the world walks. That's why we're learning how to stand forth and become separate. You won't love your wife less. This increases your capacity to love through the omnipresent love of the Father. Now the veil is cast in this way. In the 1 Corinthians, 2nd chapter, 12th verse, Paul tells us that we look at things as people look at things, instead of as Spirit does. It's a passage of glass darkly, which I don't seem to be able to find, but we see through a glass darkly. Now this glass is the conditioned cosmic mind which becomes our conditioned individual mind. And it's that conditioned individual mind which, in spite of all the teaching, insists that besides Spirit there is my daughter, besides Spirit there is my husband, besides Spirit there is my friend, my dog. And because it insists that there are these forms besides Spirit, it then finds it cannot be still. It cannot be quiet enough for the voice to speak that will melt the problems of these forms that we perpetuate in the conditioned mind. Until you accept truth, you'll find the mind is running around. It won't be still. The stillness only comes after the acceptance of truth. Now I know that any mind that accepts all there is God's Spirit will be able to be still. But without that acceptance, with all the ands, ifs, buts, and all the legal little phrases that follow in small print, these are the human fears and doubts. No wonder we cannot be still. We will not accept the Father because we still have a mind that says, but what about this and that? And there is no this and that. There's only the Father. And every time the mind refuses to be still, it is because it thinks there is still a this and a that. It even thinks there is a human mind that has the right or power to not be still or to be still. And there isn't. There is only the one infinite mind. Now your capacity then to remain still is based not only upon your capacity to be still when you meditate, but that brings up a far greater problem. We have divided living and meditating into two different parts. I'm going to live this way, and in that living I will also have some meditation. It's as if somebody were a spiritual healer who will live one way and then go into another personality to be a spiritual healer. And we ultimately find that living and healing are one and the same. You have to live in the Spirit, and that is the healing consciousness. You don't change hats. If you're not living that way, you don't find the ability to go into that silence which melts this world. And so we are all spiritual healers. We all live in the Spirit. And the Spirit, it doeth the works. Now, if you're not living in the Spirit, how can you meditate? If you're still accepting the flesh, how can you meditate? Meditation is honoring the invisible Spirit. Would you try to stop a jet plane in flight just by whistling? You must be living that way, day in and day out. Your way is living in the Spirit, the acceptance that every patient, every friend, every person, every material form is the Spirit. And then you'll find the secret of meditation is that you do not meditate. The Spirit does all the meditating. The Spirit in you is the meditator. The Spirit in you is the silent self. When you've found the depth of being everywhere, that Spirit is in permanent meditation. God is a silent God. God is resting in the Word. Also in 2 Corinthians is this passage about the illusion of form. Now this is the 5th chapter of 2 Corinthians, starting at the 16th verse. And this is the title of this chapter. Wherefore, henceforth know we no man after the flesh. Yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. Meaning, we have worshipped Jesus as a man. And you can see the translator having his trouble with this. We have worshipped Jesus as a man. But that is not true Christianity. When Christianity and all religions rise up to the place where they free their congregations from the cosmic mind, which is the veil that separates us from the truth, then religion will be that which it is supposed to be. When it recognizes this is the task, to melt, to dissolve the belief that evil is on this earth. We have worshipped a Jesus as a person, but now we know no Jesus after the flesh. And so Jesus, whom we worshipped after the flesh, departs and says, if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. If I go not away, you will continue to see me after the flesh, instead of to know that I am Spirit incarnate. And that Spirit incarnate in you is the very self-same Christ that Paul says we will now worship instead of the flesh. As you take this to heart, as you catch the feeling of the cosmic thought waves that become this outer universe, only because you have not been in the Christ Spirit, you find the voice that melts those cosmic thought waves. Now I could talk for another 5 hours on how to be silent when you meditate. But it wouldn't help you be silent when you meditate until you have crossed out the belief that there is one real physical form on this earth. As you practice, you will find that the thing you have missed in much of your meditations is that you haven't given enough time to silent contemplation. It's all been, I'll close my eyes and wait for God to do something. But there must be more time given to contemplation in the silence, where you rest, and you're not trying to meditate at all. You're trying to commune with the Spirit. You're trying to come into a place where you can take a thought. Take a thought, for instance, that we had today. This world is composed of cosmic thought waves. Now, most of us have never heard that before. And if you appeared next week without having contemplated it, you would really be no further along than you are this moment. But if you contemplate it, you will discover that in the contemplation, something takes root. Something begins to bubble up. And before you know it, there is a quickening process taking place in you, and it lifts you right into the silence of meditation without the slightest effort on your part. You're dissolved into the one infinite self, all because you are working with this idea that cosmic thought waves constitute the visible world that we see. You dwell with that a while. You contemplate it. You mull it over. You ponder it, as Mary did in her heart. And finally, in this contemplation, the roots of you are being dug deeper and deeper. You see, this is the preparation of the soil. This is what takes place before the silence of meditation. Most of us haven't plumbed the soil enough, and when we go into meditation, we're rather barren. I made a note today, and I'm glad this question came up, to remind you that there must be more periods of silent contemplation. For in that contemplation, you suddenly find that another mind takes over for you. You're not in your mind at all. And when you're not in your mind, even though you didn't plan it that way, you're really in meditation. That's where the voice comes to melt the world of problems around us. Now, it would seem that we've covered the next chapter, but I'm quite sure that a whole new flood of ideas will come to us about this is a spiritual universe. The progression is very clear. It is a slow, constant erosion of the belief in a material world. The end of judgments and criticisms, and the realization that God will never come to remove the bad conditions that beset us because they are merely hypnosis. Now, when I tell you not to remove the condition but to remove the belief, it is because Spirit gave it to me just that way. In the Bible it might read, resist not evil. Take no thought for your life. Agree with thine adversary. Turn the other cheek. Putting it in practical, simple 20th century English, it says that if you come above the belief in evil, you are free of that evil, and it cannot externalize in your life. Ice is nothing but water frozen. Outer conditions are nothing but beliefs frozen to appear visible. The belief and the condition are one and the same. One is invisible and one is visible. Remove the invisible belief and the visible condition will vanish. And there are no exceptions. Now, the capacity to remove that belief is where you should dedicate your effort, your time, your thought, your contemplation, until one by one the beliefs that you entertain about a physical world are overcome. You have much precedent for that throughout the so-called miracles of the Master in the Bible. He had no belief in a material world, and this spiritual knowledge translated outwardly as even better, good, harmonious matter. Because he brought forth the activity of the divine image where only a mental human image had appeared. Now, this is our collective and individual job. Practice, please, the silence, letting all cosmic thought waves come across your face, going by and through you with no reaction. You'll find you're able to move in the outer world with your eyes open, even knowing this is the truth of everything you see. Even an atom bomb is nothing but cosmic thought waves. Nothing of a material nature is anything but cosmic thought waves made visible and tangible. There's a story about an Indian who spent 6 years just in the quiet solitude of contemplation until he could come out and then face a firing squad and know the bullets couldn't touch him. And there wasn't a single bullet, according to this particular writer, that could touch this man. He knew the non-reality of matter. And this was his dominion over matter. I must say I didn't verify it or know how to, but you'll find it in one of the books. I think it was Masters of the Far East. Now these men are communicating to us vital truths. But that's all they can do. The voice in you must be your power, and you must prepare a way through the purity of your thought, the acceptance of only that which is truth. You'll find that voice, that living quality of God in you, does go before you in every way. I'd like you to apply some of these things to your daily problems with the realization that you don't get rid of the problem, you overcome the belief that the problem exists. And then you will find you have a new weapon, which was ordained by the Spirit. We'll just have a moment of silence now. When I meditated on this cosmic thought waves, I found a great joy creeping up inside me, as if something grand and new and wonderful had been discovered. I believe some of you may feel that as you try it. I think it's the beginning of a new level of consciousness in a way that at the moment each of us will have to describe within himself.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.